What's up, everybody? Eddie Barco here with the Nebula Music Podcast, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Elmo Lovano. Now, if you've never heard of Elmo, he's a very talented drummer who's played with a lot of big artists in his career. But more importantly than that, he's the creator and founder of JammCard, a brand new LinkedIn-type app specifically designed for musicians. And let me tell you, this app has been taking the musician world by storm. So I knew that I had to sit down with Elmo and talk to him about how he went from being a drummer to an entrepreneur. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, guys, thanks again for joining me on another great episode. I am super excited because I have none other than Elmo Lovano joining me here today. Elmo, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Eddie.
Dude, of course, I am honored to be interviewing you because you're just killing the Instagram and you're killing the Instagram game, and you're the founder of JammCard. And for those of you guys that have not heard of Elmo, seriously, I don't know where you guys have been, because this guy has been creating some really cool things in the music industry. I mean, you're a talented drummer. You've played with amazing artists, and you know what? I could spend hours and hours just talking about you, but I would much rather you talk about yourself. So why don't we get started at this point? Elmo, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit of your backstory, maybe like how you got started with music, maybe some of the artists that you play with, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah. Long story short, I come from a pretty musical family. All the males on both sides of my family are all instrumentalists, including my dad and my brother, and my uncle and my cousins. I'm the only drummer, though.
Really?
Yeah. Everyone else, there's a lot of guitar and a lot of woodwinds, a lot of saxophone and trumpet in my family, actually. But so I don't. But my parents were like super rock and roll. They were hippies, you know. So like I was raised just around music always.
Yeah.
You know, my parents were always going to concerts and always listening to music. My dad always wanted to have the best stereo systems and like all that kind of stuff, you know. So I don't know. Music just came to me really naturally. I was drumming before, you know, I was playing on like plastic little drum kits before I was like talking. So
wait, did you skip over the pots and pans? Do you go straight to plastic kit?
I just didn't start talking until I was like 12. No, I'm just kidding. My uncle got me like a little plastic, like Fisher Price kit. And that I just like, you know, for my first birthday that I could just carry with me everywhere. And so I did and just played that little thing sitting on the floor in diapers. Diapers used to be my throne. Right. And I would just play and like play along to whatever my dad was listening to, which was usually either the Beatles or Zeppelin or like Money for Nothing, Dire Straits, maybe some Van Halen, you know. And then, yeah, when I was 10 was when I got my first like drum pad, because I was like, I want something real. And then I kind of proved it to my parents that I was really serious, because I just played the pad all the time. I pretty much played Wipeout on a pad for a year, and then got a kit when I was 11. Got my first like real kit, and then got my first touring gig when I was 15.
Wow.
And then started young DIY punk rock tours, did that, and then just kind of grew from there. And then I joined a bigger punk band and did that. And that was my first international touring band was when I was 18. And we became a successful unsigned band. We sold 100,000 albums, no label.
Nice. What was the name of the band?
That band was called Never Heard of It, which is so stupid. Yeah, I mean, we were teenagers. And it's a good band. It was really good. We wrote like really catchy songs. It was in like the pop punk days. You know, we were playing with like Newfound Glory and like Sugar Cult and stuff like that. When those bands were, you know, huge at the time. And then so that went well. Learned a lot in that whole process, and then kind of kept moving, kept growing, and quit that band and went back and started this weekly event because I'm born and raised in LA, and I was just seeing lack of community, and it was just everyone was segregated, and I really was just wanted to make a hub for all the musicians and artists and painters and everyone to all be together. So I started this night that was called Camerata, that I thought was going to be a weekly event that I would try to do like 4 times in in a month, and then that was it. But then all 4 nights were really successful, and I ended up doing 200 of them.
Wow.
Almost 4 years. This is when I started that when I was like 22. And then, so I did that. And then, a lot of bands that I was booking ended up getting discovered there and went on and had successful careers. Skrillex, Young the Giant, Dead Sarah, a bunch of these bands. And then, I met Christina Perri there actually. And then Christina started blowing up. She had a song that started taking off, and then I became her music director. Actually, I became her drummer first, and then grew into music director. And that was when I started going back on tour again after I took the 3 years off to do that event. And then, I'm giving you a really short story.
That's a good, concise story.
Yeah, a bunch has happened, and I've spoken a good amount about, like, more in detail about those, or like, the growth in that on, like, other podcasts, other interviews and stuff. But it's like, essentially it's that I've always been a community person. I love collaborating. I love playing with people. And I also love shining a light on super talented people. And hence JammCard. And I thought of JammCard at that event when I was throwing that weekly event, and I didn't end up building it for another 4 years after I thought of it and started developing in my mind and drawing out screens and yada, 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 all that stuff. That was a long process. But now I am here and JammCard's out, and it feels really good, and we're getting a great response. And, essentially, if you don't know what JammCard is, JammCard is the Music Professionals Network. We have an app that is a invite-only social network of the top pros in music. So everyone from musicians to producers, engineers. We even have managers, tour managers, front of house guys, lighting anyone in the studio, anyone on the tour. We even have entertainment attorneys now and publishers, nice. Stuff like that. So it's essentially like an IMDb Pro or like a LinkedIn, but just for the music industry, but also highly curated. We only allow active professionals in the app. And it's going really well, and it's growing, and we're getting a great response. And there's a lot. We have on top of the app, we have 5 original web series. So we're big on the content creation. I know a lot of your listeners, care about marketing and Instagram and all that stuff. And I honestly, the whole thing's just been a learning experiment for me. And I treat everything like an experiment, especially more recently, because it's kind of hard to predict what's going to go well and get a lot of views or a lot of engagement and what's not going to. Some of my favorite things that I thought would be the most engaging were like the least, and some things that I thought were like, oh, this is good, but it's not amazing, or like the most received. So I'm like, well, yeah, what the heck?
Well, what's a good example of that, if I can ask you? Like of one thing that was not well received that you thought was going to be a good, successful thing, if that makes sense.
Well, what I've noticed is like, so I like doing interview stuff, and I've done
really. I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell.
And I think dialogue is just harder for people. People love podcasts, which is really weird because I've never done a podcast, but I guess I should. But in video, I think it's harder to capture people in dialogue than it is. They'd rather see performance. I think performance is more eye grabbing, and I don't know why I haven't done a podcast, honestly, bro. You tell me, dude. What am I doing?
I know why. You've got a great voice. You have a great timbre and everything. You're like made for spoken word, man.
Why, thank you. What's funny is so How I Got the Gig is one of our shows that I think because you made the joke about me interviewing people, and So How I Got the Gig is an interview series where we interview pros on how they got their big gig. So we did Morris Hayes on Prince. We did Victoria Theodore on Beyonce. We did Rico Nichols on Kendrick Lamar. We did Luke Holland on being like a YouTube drummer star. We did, Adrian X on Drake. We did a bunch of people. And I thought I think like our performance videos get far more views, even though I think what is being said, and I think if you read the comments and stuff, what's being said, there's more value in those interviews. Like in terms of, if you want to learn, you can learn so much in How I Got the Gig, because you're hearing real stories from real people, you know, and none of them, like, especially if you're going to music school, are your listeners mostly musicians?
Primarily musicians, yeah. There are a lot of creative people, but in general, 90% musicians of all kinds.
So awesome. So I think like, I honestly think that you'll learn more from watching How I Got the Gig than you will in any music school. Because music school, don't get me wrong, is great and will teach you so much stuff like notation, technique,
theory, and all that stuff.
Sight reading, all this stuff. But what they don't teach you, from what I hear, because, I mean, full disclosure, I'm self-taught and I've never been to school. So,
nice.
So I don't actually know. But from what I hear from people, when I hear people complain about school, or when they're like, oh man, well, you know, I graduated from here, but now I'm in the real world, right? Because we have like a lot of people applying, trying to get into JammCard, stuff like that, right? It's like, you'll learn that. I think what's missing from school is they don't tell you how to get a gig, right? Or how to get a real job. And so much of it is who you know and who knows you, which is the beautiful thing about social media, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's not only social media, because I have friends who have huge followings on social media, but they can't get a gig at the same time, right? So it's like, what is this? There's a puzzle there that I love trying to solve, right? And so it's a really interesting thing. But I think, you know, I would highly recommend watching How I Got the Gig, because you can hear that the common thread in all of their stories is, you know, play every gig you can, especially when you're in those days. Be seen, have people see you for you, work hard, because that word spreads. I mean, it sounds like such general advice, but even the biggest gigs in the world come from word of mouth.
Yeah.
And that was also another big reason why I started JammCard, because I was like, well, if I'm a music director and I get a budget from a label to build a band, I'm still doing word of mouth. You know, like, it's essentially the same thing as if you're trying to build a band and you're an amateur and you're like posting on the board at Guitar Center or something, you know, like there was no network for that. So I was like, okay. So I wanted to solve that problem. And I also just wanted to make an easy platform for people that's away from Instagram. It's away from Facebook, but it's also really modern, super social, but it's about you and your skill in music. And that's it. It's not about your food. It's not about your family. It's just about you and that. And it keeps it really professional, but it also has, you know, you can follow people, you can message. There's a messenger built into the app. You can upvote, you can comment, you know, you can browse, we have an advanced search where you can like hyper search for like a drummer that's a producer that plays hip hop, whatever.
Yeah. There's a couple things you said that really stood out to me primarily. And the one thing that I really loved that you said was that it's still in a way a word of mouth. And even backtracking a bit on how you commented on music school, and like you, like, I completely agree about music school. Like, I was self-taught primarily until I got to college, but even in college, like, no one ever sat there and listed me, okay, here's who you got to call, here's what you got to go to be seen, here's, like, none of that. No one ever told me what to do to get a gig. And so really early on, what stuck out to me, at least in today's world, was that there really is a balance between, you know, having some sort of online presence. You don't necessarily have to be famous, but at least have some sort of online content, and then also do your part by hustling and getting out there and meeting and networking. Keyword there is networking. And so, you know, I'm curious, do you see a big difference? And maybe I already know the answer, but I'm curious, like, what the difference was for you a couple years ago, before social media was a thing, versus now. I mean, now we have JammCard, now we have Instagram, and now we have people with fan bases. But even me, like, when I was first starting out music, when I was like 15 or something, there wasn't Instagram. That wasn't a thing yet. So I'm curious, like, do you feel like it's a very big difference from how it used to be and how it is now? And how much of an impact does social media help you with getting those gigs?
Dude, night and day. Yeah, it's completely different. There's a huge impact. The beautiful thing about social media is discovery and connecting. And so you simply couldn't discover this many people back then.
Yeah.
I mean, I was using MySpace heavily before Instagram and before.
What? MySpace?
Dude, MySpace, my band was huge on MySpace back in those days. I'm 33. So, I mean, and I also started really young, so, I mean, I was definitely like, I don't know, 16 with a MySpace page or something, but yeah. But even then, they didn't have a search. They didn't have activity feed. That activity feed was invented by Facebook. So, so even the social networks those social networks didn't have that functionality, which is like where the world sits today and gives their time. And so, I mean, JammCard, I'm biased, so I can't really talk on that. But even Instagram, like I will, especially what Instagram has evolved into. I share videos on Instagram, like I'm talking personal ones, like I'll see a killer player, I'll share their video to someone. I'm like, you should check this out. Boom, right there. You would have had to, in order to see that player, you'd have to physically be in the same city as that person that they happen to live in or are touring through. And if they're touring through, you can't actually collaborate with them because then they're moving on to the next city and they don't even live there anyways, So
yeah,
you have to like find people that are in your city that have the same, hobbies as you and wants and needs and likes and interests and all this stuff. And it just, it kind of makes bands, back then such anomalies, like when you look at the Beatles or like Zeppelin or even Nirvana, it's like, how did these people find each other?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them actually, they grew together because this goes with dating as well, not just music, because there's a lot of similarities in like, for example, in gigging and in dating, right?
Yeah.
Being in a band and dating. And it's like you now have so many options, or you at least feel like you do, right? Whether or not you actually have the ability to grab someone, connect with them, get in touch with them, work with them, whatever you feel, you definitely have a better chance than you did. That's for sure, by exponentially. And so I think that's both a good and a bad thing. But, like I think back then in those days, you were in a band with your friends because you knew them and hopefully they played an instrument that you didn't play so you could play together. Or you had 4 guitarists in your band and you're the Eagles. So, so I think that, but look, it's not like that prevented good music from being made. There was, arguably even better music back then, depending on what you're into, so.
Yeah.
But no matter what, for what I'm doing, like, I'm a music director, right? So I go through players all the time. I need players, now since JammCard's launched, I stopped touring because I have to run the company and all that stuff. But I toured my entire adult life. And so I was always looking for, I need a drummer for this band. I need a bass player for this band, guitar player, backing singer, lead singer, tour manager, whatever it may be. So now with the internet, I can grab something like, I can grab someone's JammCard that has everything about them, videos of them playing, pictures of them, who they've worked with, their skills, who in the community has uploaded their skills. And I can just send it to whoever's looking for that person. So my whole thing, that was a hope for JammCard, was I was like, I don't like cattle call auditions, like come audition for this artist. And then like 100 bass players show up and you have to audition 100 bass players. I'm like, that's a waste of time for everybody. That's a waste of time for the music director, for the artist, for the manager, for the people that are already in the band, and for all those 100 bass players. Because in reality, 97 of them, or at least 90 of them, probably would have never even been considered because they have the wrong look or the wrong feel, or they don't even really play that genre, or whatever it may be. So that was what I wanted to do, is I was like, we could digitally instead find people that we think are really, really great for this one certain gig. And then instead of bringing in 100, bring in 5 that you think all 5 of these people would be great contenders, Yeah. And then it's just more so about seeing them in person, and then can you vibe with them? Because the vibe is the most important thing when it comes to getting a gig with touring or even in the studio. Like, people hire who they want to be around. It's not who's the best.
It's interesting because I feel like I've heard this a lot from other people that I've interviewed, and even from myself the vibe plays a huge role, right?
Yeah.
What I always assumed, I've never been a musical director, but I'm assuming from you, that there always had to be a balance between skill and vibe. Do you feel like the vibe is usually way more important than skill?
Yes.
Really?
For sure. Because you can have the vibe and be like a good player and get the gig. But you could be an amazing player and not have the vibe, and you won't get the gig, or you'll lose the gig once you do get it.
Oh man, has that ever happened to you, where you like gave someone a gig and you just discovered like halfway through, like, oh my god, this guy's just a pain?
Of course, man. Of course. Oh yeah. Luckily, I do due diligence on people, so I'll if I feel someone's right for the gig, I'll try to find someone that's toured with them before, which is another thing that you can do in JammCard. You can be like, oh, this guy's played with these cats. All right, I'm gonna hit up I know this guy. Hit him up. Yo, what's it like touring with this dude? He's like, man, actually, the dude's kind of a liar. You're like, what? A liar? Like, he's like, yeah, or whatever it may be. I'm just giving an example. But liars are the worst. I'll tell you what. I've had a couple like pathological liars get involved in that are really talented, and they get essentially blacklisted. Like, I'm never, because anyone that you fire, you're never hiring again. And that's the famous quote is like, anyone can make it, but can you stay there?
Yeah. Right.
Like, anyone can be a one-hit wonder, but can you have a long career? Anyone can get this one gig, but can you stay on the gig?
Yeah.
And that's why, and obviously there's a difference between getting kicked off a gig or you being like, hey, I'm going to move on to a bigger gig or a better gig, or that you don't like this genre anymore, or whatever it may be, or maybe you don't vibe with the people so much and you're like, you know what, the gig's cool, but I don't really connect with these people, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And I've been on both sides of that.
Can I ask you something? And this is just something that I'm very curious about. Like, I like picking people's brains. And one of the things I'm getting from you, well, there's a couple things that I've gotten from you. You're a very smart man. You're very, you have a very good entrepreneur sense, which I highly respect and I highly love. But the one thing I love about you specifically is that you kind of know what you want and you know what you're going after, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but I have been faced with many times where I'm dealing with musicians, friends, or clients, or whatever it is that I'm working on. I have dealt with so many people that know that they should be doing something else, but they're not. And they're kind of just winging what they're currently doing now, and they're not in it all the way. But one of the things I like about you is that it seems to me that in your career, whenever you've wanted to do something, you just kind of go for it. And when you don't feel it anymore, you kind of just move on. You're like, hey, this was cool. My heart's telling me I got to go do something else. It may not make any sense to you, but it makes sense to me and I got to go do my thing. Like, were you always that way? If I could ask?
No, it was not. That definitely is like an experience thing, and you touched on two different points there that are really good. Number one, go after what you want for sure. But number two, know what you want. And I think that's what most people don't actually sit down and reflect and decide for themselves. All the time, people will come up to me like, "Yo, I want to be on a gig, man. How do I get hired for a gig? How do I get hired for a gig?" And I'll ask them back, "Okay, cool. What's your dream gig?" And they'll just look at me like, "I don't know." Right? Like, Eddie, what's your dream gig?
My dream gig?
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. It sounds very lucrative. I want to own my own management company.
Oh, there you go.
That is my dream gig.
Not even drumming.
Not even drumming. Like, drumming is cool. Like, here's the thing. Like, I love drumming, and dream gig in terms of drumming is playing, what's the name of the stadium? Manchester.
No, not an arena. Are you talking about an arena? Okay, so swipe that, because an arena is at a venue. That doesn't, I don't think that's a weird goal. I mean, you could have that goal. I don't mean to say that's a weird goal. You could have a goal like, oh, I want to play Manchester Arena, or I want to play Hollywood Bowl, or something like that. But that's a little more of a shot in the dark, because it's like, well, who's going to bring you there? So when I say what's your dream gig would be if drumming was your pursuing, let's say.
So who would I want to play for?
Exactly.
John Mayer, easily.
Nice. There you go. So it's good to know that, right? And it's great that you know that, because I swear 9 times out of 10 people will look at me and they won't have that answer, or they'll be like, damn, I don't know. Let me think. And I'll be like, cool. Let me know in 30 seconds. Oh, I don't know. Give me I need to think about, like, okay, well, like, to know that now you have a stick in the mud that you can walk after. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like, that'll save so much time. And another thing that I have experienced that did happen to me that I see a lot also is someone wants to have a gig. Okay, I want to get a gig. Okay, cool. So let's say they're like, they're a good player, right? And a country band walks up to them, or a country artist, and is like, "Hey, I really want you to play with me. I got this gig for you. Here's this much pay." And you're like, "Oh, I'm happy with that pay." I don't really like country music, but I can play it. Sure, I'll take the gig, right? Now, the thing that happens is if you do good on that gig, which hopefully you do, because what's the point of taking a gig if you're not going to do good on it? So whatever gig you take, you should give your all. And then when you do take it, if you're giving your all and you're doing well, the people that are going to see you playing that gig are the people that are playing country music, right? So the next gig offer that you're going to get is going to be another country artist, right? Which is fine and great if you want to play country, but not if you don't want to play country. Like, let's say you're like, man, I want to play hip hop or pop, but I got offered this country gig, so I'm going to take it and then I'm going to sit on it. So, and this does contradict what a lot of people have said and what actually did change my life as a drummer, which is say yes to every gig and go for it, which is very early days things to do as you climb. But it's also why I left a certain gig that I was on, because I was like, you know what? I'm making good money on this one gig and I could sit on this gig for a long time, but I don't really enjoy this genre of music. It's not me, so I had that same goal. I wanted to play the Hollywood Bowl, right? I was like, I'm from LA. Yeah. I'm like, Hollywood Bowl would be amazing. Wow. I hope I could get there. So I ended up achieving that. Right. And I was like, cool. And then once I achieved that, I was like, you know what? I want to play the Hollywood Bowl, which I did, but I want to play it with this kind of artist or with my music, Yeah. And so that was when I realized, I was like, you know what? This gig isn't the dream gig for me, but it's the dream gig for somebody else. And therefore I should open up the seat and give it to someone, and that person could have it, and which I ended up doing. And it's been great, and it's great for both parties, I mean, so, and that's one thing that I try to do that I think that's more of a luxury item though, really aiming for a gig, but no matter what, know what you want. And push yourself in that way. And the best way that you can push yourself now that you couldn't do 10 years ago is like, okay, if your dream gig is Bruno Mars, you should make videos of you playing to Bruno Mars, because people are going to see you playing that. They're going to associate you with that. And also you're going to watch yourself back playing that kind of music, which the best way to learn is to watch yourself back. Oh, my technique's a little weird. Ooh, I'm actually hitting too hard. Oh, I don't sound so good. Oh, I need to work on my tone, whatever it may be. I mean, hopefully, or you're just, super conceited and up your own ass and you're just like, I'm perfect. But I mean, I always aim to grow, and, I feel like I'm never there, Yeah. And that's another thing I've learned is like, you get used to everything.
How true. How true? I mean, can I say something? That's something that I find very interesting with very successful people, and not even just musicians, anyone who's ever reached a certain plateau of success in their industry, will tell you how easy it is to get complacent. And, let's say someone that has like a, really expensive Ferrari, like after about a year, it's just a car, especially if you can buy more. It's like that concept that you constantly have these like dreams and goals that you're trying to go after, but you can get used to anything, which I think is a phenomenal statement of what you just said.
Yeah, and I also think that's a beautiful thing, because settling is, boring, right?
Yeah.
So the unfortunate thing about you get used to anything is like, oh man, you can be really selfish, you can be greedy. That's not good. But at the same time, the optimistic side to look at it is you always push for growth. Like, okay, I have this. Well, now I want to get to the next level. Or I want to unlock this new thing. I want to achieve this, that can even go for like Instagram followers. Like, man, I want 10,000 followers. First, right? Okay, cool. You get 10,000 followers. You're like, okay, you're like excited for like a day, Maybe
yeah.
You could have chased it for 5 years. You know, like,
yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I don't want to say 9,758. I wanted to say 10.1, right? Okay. I guarantee as soon as you get to 10.1, within a couple of days, you're going to be like, I want that 10.2.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And you'll be like, I need 20,000. All right, cool. I need 100,000. Right? And I think that's what happens with a lot. You know, that's part greed, but at the same time, I mean, I get it. The more reach you have, the better. You know, and the more powerful you have, and the more you can utilize it for good things, hopefully. But I don't know. It's a really interesting thing. I mean, I don't have like a ton of followers. You know, I have like a good amount. I mean, I have friends that have way more than me, way more. And like, I have friends that have, you know, millions and millions of followers. And like, but when we sit down and have lunch, there's no difference in them or me, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and they don't feel, it's not like they open up Instagram every time and they're like, I have so many followers. So it's like that doesn't, you know, I mean, I have a friend that's, you know, one of the most watched drummers, you know, and he's got a ton of subscribers, and he's just like, man, I need more. I need my next milestone. He's focused on his next milestone. And that's a beautiful thing, you know, like, then my dude he's still hungry. He wants more, you know? It's like, this isn't enough. Even I'm like, dude, I think you might have the most or the second amount. It doesn't matter. I want to hit the next one. Cool.
Can I ask who it is? I'm just curious. It's okay if you can't say.
I don't want to say because I don't want to throw anyone
on the
bus, but there's only so many people with huge ass followings on as a drummer on YouTube.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I know who it is, but that was just, yeah, you're absolutely right. I can pretty much guess.
Yeah. And he's focused on hitting his next milestone. I'm like, dude, go get it. That's tight. You know, like, but also, it goes back to it. And once again, it just depends what your goals are. So I would say if your goal is to have 100,000 followers, my question would be why? You know, like, good question. What do you want to do with those 100,000 followers? What are you going to use it for? You're just like, it's because I want to get 5,000 likes. No, not a good answer. You know, like, are you trying to sell an album? Are you trying to sell your skills? Are you trying to sell a commodity? Are you trying to raise money for a nonprofit? Like, what do you want to do? You know, like, and having reach and followers is a beautiful thing, but you got to use it, you know? And I think, you know, people can choose to use their followings in whatever way they want. And one thing that I've done recently that I got to say, which I think ended up bringing me more followers and is what JammCard is I talk about other people and how amazing other people are. You know, I'm all like, this person's awesome. This person's awesome. This person's great. This person's great. That's what the JammCard Instagram is, you know. And also, if you're a musician, I recommend following JammCard on Instagram because all we do every day is post dope musicians.
Yeah.
Like, these people are dope, and it's all different genres, and it's, you know, it's people that are pros, and we do post some people that are social people that don't have a gig, but they're just really great players, or they have great followings, you know? Yeah. It's so weird because there's such a new landscape now because of social media and because of streaming. Like, look at the Spotify Global Top 50 and compare that to the Billboard charts and compare that to the radio charts, and they're so different. Yeah. And you're like, how is that possible? It's because it's three completely different markets. And I mean, but to me, I think the most important one, or the most accurate one, would be the global top 50 for Spotify. You know, because you're looking at what's really being listened to all over the world, not just in a certain region. And like, now that's the other beautiful thing about social media and the internet is like, and you know, WhatsApp. I don't know if WhatsApp's considered a social media app. It should be, though, because I guess there's not media. So, okay, it's a social app.
Yeah, just social communication.
But like, you can talk to someone in Russia for free all the time, as much as you want. You can FaceTime, or I don't know if you can FaceTime on WhatsApp. Can you? I don't know. But you can. But you can't, I mean, via any platform now. I mean, social media is kind of blending all into one another, you know, obviously, especially Facebook, Instagram, and they're the leaders. But It's really interesting, man. So you can communicate with anyone, and you could be anywhere, and you can send stems to anybody. You know, like I can send, like I can have a fan in wherever. It doesn't matter, you know, and that's a beautiful thing. And so I don't know. I would just encourage people to just, you know, to really dive deep on themselves and what their real true goals are, and then just ask the why to yourself. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the one thing. If anyone has ever been successful, it's because they know exactly who they are, what values they have, and basically everything that they've ever done revolves around that. And it's something that I don't feel creative people spend enough time doing. And I don't mean to be, you know, running around the bush a lot on this topic, but I think it's very important because to me, when I hear your story, which is something that it's inspirational to me and something that took me years to learn, I haven't even perfected it. I don't consider myself, you know, a guru in anything, but it took me years to figure out why I wanted to do certain things. And I think you experimented a lot when you were younger, just in your life in general, that helped you kind of sort of figure yourself out as you kept going from project to project to understanding what it is that you enjoy doing. Totally. And like you mentioned at the very beginning, part of your passion is, you know, community. Ensuring that there's a community alive. And it just so happened that you were a musician. Part of me even wonders if maybe if you weren't a musician, let's say you were like a lawyer or a doctor, right? Like I wonder if you'd be the guy creating like a social media platform for doctors. You know what I mean? Like it's that concept that it's so simple of what is important to you. And then your skills and talents kind of revolve around that, if that makes sense.
Totally, man. And well, you know, in my past life, I was a priest. And I used to marry people under the palm tree. I'm just kidding. But
oh my God. Oh man, you're awesome, dude. You're hilarious.
But for real though, in the whys, right? When you ask yourself why, because the other thing that my advisor taught me is, okay, you can have your goals and blah, blah, blah. What can you do right now? Right? What do you already have that'll actually get you to your goals, or that can start exercising or practicing on your goals, or can help you start taking care of your goals right now? And for example, when you ask yourself why, okay, I want to have 1 million followers. Why? Because I want to have a big fan base. Why? Because I would love for everyone to hear my music. Okay, why? Because, well, then I could have money. Okay, why? Well, then I could buy my mom a house. Why? Because I want to support my mom. Okay, why not just go, what's the best way to support your mom? Go hang out with your mom. Right? Like, yeah. And that was the thing that happened for me, that exercise. I was like, oh, wow, I don't need money to go take care of my mom. Right? Yeah. All I need to take care of my mom is time. Right? Is just to give her time, you know, and like to go spend time with my mom will mean far more to her than buying her something. You know, as much as I would love to buy my mom a house, which she'd be ecstatic for because she's still rents, you know, she'd probably be even more stoked if I just went and spent a day a week with her, you know, just hanging out. And that's just me, you know, everyone's got a different situation, different story, obviously, you know, but like that's a lot of my why boils down to community, family. Right. And I believe that my community is my family, because I don't think you need to be blood in order to be family. You know, I have a family, and I'm grateful for that. And I love my family, and I'm very close with my mom, my dad, my brother, my cousins. I mean, we're Italian, you know, but on top of that, I also have friends that I consider family, you know, that I love to death. So do you feel like your early career or maybe not even just your career, but do you feel like a lot of the big projects, whether they were music or not, a lot of the big events in your life, do you feel like that core concept of family, of community, do you feel like they were all behind that to some degree? Yes, definitely. Especially when I look back. Now keep in mind, I didn't realize what I was doing at first, you know, right. Especially when I was young, like when I started Camerata, that event, you know, I wasn't like intending. I mean, like I wanted to create a place for everyone that I could to expose really talented people and for everyone to have a place, but I didn't even think about the power of the community. And that was my first time experiencing the power of community, you know? Yeah. And most of that power I didn't realize until a couple years after it had ended.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think that I look forward to with JammCard, and everything that I'm doing now is I'm like, you don't know when you're going to see the benefits of what you're doing today. Certain things you can see today, certain things you can see tomorrow, but some things you won't see for 5-10 years, and I think that's awesome. I'll be in a meeting with a manager at a huge management company talking about JammCard, and he'll be like, oh yeah, and he'll be like, this is cool, we'll be talking, and then all of a sudden we'll realize, I'll be like, oh yeah, I did this thing and blah blah, and he'll be like, wait, were you this that, and I'm like, yeah, and he was like, dude, you booked my band when I was still playing in bands. You booked my band 9 years ago and gave us our break. I'm like,
wow.
Oh wow, like that kind of stuff happens, and you're like, whoa. And I never thought that was going to happen. You can never guess that that'll happen, and that to me has been one of the most rewarding things about community and about supporting other people, and also another thing for me, and I consciously made this decision with the state of the world right now, right? Where I'm like, okay, shit's heavy right now, and there's a lot of division happening. There's a lot of hatred happening, but I also think there's a lot of love happening at the same time. And like the hatred's also breeding new love and blah, blah. No matter what, we're in a difficult time right now. But I was like, you know what? I'm not a politician. I'm not going to sit here and waste my time reading all the news and talking politics with people when I know I'm not going to go run for Senate or governor or anything like that. And I don't have any power in it. And just talking is like a waste of time, and it could lead to stress and blah, blah, whatever. I was like, but you know what? I feel like I can make an impact in music and in the music community, and there's enough to fight for that alone. So I might as well put my time and energy into fighting for music and standing for music and doing whatever I can to make musicians' lives better.
Yes.
And like I made that conscious decision. I mean, I had obviously already started building JammCard and yada yada before that, but when January 1st happened and I was like, wow, we're gonna have a new president, this is gonna be really weird. I had to make that decision, and I'm happy I did, because it's like I see my friends a lot getting into heated battles about what's going on right now. And I typically will just remove myself from that conversation.
Can I say something real quick? I don't mean to interrupt your sentence there, but I think you hit something perfectly well with your statement, which is something that I've been trying to explain to friends for a long time. And I think you explained it better than I could have, which is, basically doing what you can with your passion. Like, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things in the world that are horrible, imbalanced, and frankly, maybe there are some things that we'll never be able to fix ourselves, and it's easy to sit there and just look at the news and be like, oh God, everything sucks. Why does everything suck? Why? Well, the reality is you can't fix it just by sitting there. And what I loved about what you said is that you decided to do what you could with what you were passionate about and remove yourself from the major problem. So not only did you, in a sense, kind of solve yourself from becoming part of the problem, you now became the solution in that way. And that to me is amazing, because you didn't necessarily plan out to go like, all right, I'm going to go solve a problem. You were just like, you know what? This is bad. I'm going to go do what makes me happy, which is creating community. And I want to help my community of musicians. And that whole notion, that mindset of just kind of going after what you love, and hopefully that it'll benefit someone, that's what creates change, in my opinion. And I think you're doing that incredibly well with JammCard.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Whether it was intentional or unintentional, like, I think it's fascinating. And I think congratulations is well deserved to you, man.
Oh,
like,
thanks,
seriously.
Dude. I mean, once again, I think it's something that I learned in reflecting, and then was like, once I realized it, I was like, okay, now I can make this intentional. It was like maybe accidental discovery at first that came from just natural decisions without it being because of this. Just, I want to do this. So now I'm stepping forward, being like, oh, this is what I want to do and why I want to do it, and I'm gonna go all in on trying to do it.
Absolutely, man. And frankly, like, I had no intention of talking some of these topics when we first started the conversation. That's one thing I love about just conversations in general with people, is that I'm here to learn, man. And when we're talking, I just love learning about people's life and how it is that they, are motivated to pursue their passions and their projects. And I can definitely see the passion in JammCard. And one of the things that I'm very curious about, like, I learn from a lot of different people. Some of my fans know that I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurs, and I love, like, Gary Vee. Like, I'm all about his stuff. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is understanding the process of how someone gets about to starting a business, especially like yours. And so obviously you came up with the idea when you were doing your event, years before. But if it was possible, obviously there's so many steps that are involved in starting something like JammCard. But, like, do you remember the first couple steps that you started taking? Like, maybe you wrote out a business plan. Maybe you just kind of talked about the idea with friends. Like, walk me through a little bit of the early days of JammCard, if that's possible.
Yeah, totally. The first thing I did after the years of just, like, drawing screens and, like, just dreaming, I wasn't like actively building it those first couple of years. I was putting time into thinking of what it is, and
well, let me ask you this real quick. Did you know it was going to be an app, or were you designing something else at the time?
No, at the time I was designing a website, because when I thought of it, literally I had a sidekick. There were not even smartphone apps yet.
Oh, Jesus, man.
Yeah, because yeah. Once I stepped, but that was all before I decided I'm going to go all in and do this, right? So once I decided, okay, I want to do this, my first thing was, I don't know how to start a company, like, or what that takes, So I talked to my dad. He was the first person I talked to, because he's an entrepreneur, not in tech, but he had an aviation company. He had a flight school. He had a interior landscaping company, and some things like that. But I talked to him about it first, and he was like, "Write me a business plan. That's a really great idea. You should do this. Write me a business plan." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I went to Google and searched, like, what is a business plan, and then, like, read about it, and then tried for like 3 days and was like, "Fuck this. I hate this. I do not want to do this at all." But then literally 4 years later, I was like, okay, now I realize I really want to do this. Definitely. What do I got to do? So the first thing I did was I found a friend, her name's Darianne, that knew how to start a startup, So I got together with her, pitched it to her. She was like, I'm in. This is obviously long story short.
Right.
Got together with her, pitched it to her. She was like, I'm in. She knew I was a hard worker, and she knew I had connections in music and had been doing music for years. I've been friends with her for years already at that point. So she had seen a lot of what I had done. And she was a business side, marketing, all that stuff. So she told me, she was like, let's make an internal brand brief and an external brand brief. And I was like, those are the first documents we made. And I was like, okay, what is that? And, an internal brand brief is like, what is everything? Like, what is JammCard for everyone inside? Like, what is this going to become? What is this? Blah, 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 blah. And for external, it's like, okay, what can the outside know about right now? What's the quicker description, more watered down, not it's going to be this, and this, and this. And then once we did that, then it was like, okay, cool. And then I had already drawn out screens. And it was like, okay, well, now all right, so let's find a tech team. So we went and started finding a tech team. So now let me instead, I think I could give better advice compared to what I did. What I learned is far more valuable than what I did.
Usually is, right?
Yeah. Because, like, if I was going to do this again tomorrow, which I'm not going to do tomorrow, but I'm definitely going to start another company again one day. And I will do it this way. So if you want to start or create an app, the first thing I highly recommend you doing is designing screens. Do not develop anything. Don't write any code unless you're a programmer. If you're a programmer, don't listen to me. Go make your app. There you go. And you're lucky, right? If you're anything like me, I was non-technical. So I did not know how to code. Best thing you could do is there's a thing called Envision. Envision is a design app that you can use to create design prototypes of anything, right? So you can make a design prototype of your app, of JammCard or whatever, that has no code, that's just like, okay, this is what the profile screen looks like. And it has this, and this button is here, and this button is here, and this button is here. Okay, cool. And then there's going to be a messenger, and here's the messenger. Okay, and I want there to be search, and here's search, and I want an activity feed, and here's this, and whatever else you want. And because in doing that drill, you're going to learn so much about your product, right? That you didn't even, it's going to force you to brainstorm and think of new things that you didn't even think about because you're just like, oh, I want to make an app for musicians. It's like a LinkedIn for musicians, right? You're like, okay, what is that? Okay. Use LinkedIn and see what you love about it and see what you hate about it. Eliminate what you hate about it and utilize what you love about it and make it yours, right? And then go through and do that design process because the designing is far more affordable compared to the development. Coding, hiring an engineer to develop your shit is the most expensive part by far, right? And it's also the hardest part to make a change. Like, oh, actually, I don't want this button here. I want this button here. Cool. Far more expensive and costly and time and everything into moving that button when you could easily just do it in a design prototype. Just move it over here. Oh, I like it here now. Okay, cool. Make it a hotkey so you can see what it feels like and see what screen it goes to. You can do all that with Envision, right? It's like a commercial for Envision.
Envision. Buy it now.
Yeah, buy now. I swear I don't have stocks in that company, although maybe I wish I did. So I would say design it first. Show your friends. Oh, okay. So your boy Gary Vee that you're talking about, right? So I was lucky enough to have dinner with Gary Vee once.
What?
Yeah, in a group setting. Essentially,
man, I'm blown away right now.
Oh man, he inspired me so much, dude. Holy shit. He's like, dude's like a machine gun of just knowledge.
You can sit with him for 30 seconds and you're ready to go after those 30 seconds. It's insane.
Dude, I listened to him talk for like 4 hours.
Jesus, right? Man. I envy you.
And I could have sat longer. But one thing that he told me that changed me for sure was because, especially when I first started JammCard and blah, blah, the only person I told was my dad. And he told me, don't tell anybody about this because they'll steal it from you. So unless they signed an NDA, which I didn't know what that was at the time, unless you signed an NDA, you can't tell anybody about this. So I didn't for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Now, Gary Vee, polar opposite, right? Gary Vee told me, he was like, tell me or anyone everything because talking about it is far more valuable to you than you holding it in and keeping your secret to yourself, right? Because first of all, when you talk it out, you're going to go deeper in your mind of your own thought and your own product, right? You're also going to get feedback from people, which is the most valuable thing you can get, is just honest feedback, right? It'll change your thought of something. And on top of that, no one's going to take your idea and steal it from you. And if they do, they have to go all in and quit whatever they're doing in order to compete with you and build your idea out, right? Now, if you're lazy and you're not building it out, maybe that's why you're scared about telling people because you're not ever actually going to build it out, right? But get off your ass and go build this is what Gary would say, right? Why aren't you building this right now? What's your excuse? You're making excuses, right? And what Gary told me was Gary was like, yo, I will tell you every idea I have and all my plans for how I'm going to grow VaynerMedia for the next 5 years. I'll tell you my 5-year plan, right? Internal stuff. And I don't even care. Do you know why? Because you're not going to do anything with the information I give you. And the only thing that you could do would be take it and try to copy me and compete with me. But good luck, because if you do, you're competing with me, right? And I'm going to run over you.
That sounds exactly like him. Holy
and I
shit.
loved that, dude.
Holy shit.
And I loved that. So now I tell far more people about like, yo, I want to build this for JammCard. What do you think? What do you think? I ask everybody, what do you think? Hey, do you want this feature? Like, instead of me just building it and spending time and resources and money, I could be building something that people don't want. But now JammCard's a little different because like I am the main demographic of JammCard. Like I built my favorite app that I wanted, right? But as it grows, now I'm like thinking of new things, you know, because I already built my what they call the MVP or minimal viable product, right? I built that already. So now as we're growing, it's like, what are the new features? I ask all of our members. I message every member, okay, that's actually a dated comment. Up until a month ago, I was messaging every single member.
Hey, you've messaged me, so I count. That's for sure.
There you go. And I still do message majority of members. And I try to message every single member. But first of all, I respond to every person that writes me. So if you write me, I will write you back. I promise. But I try to initiate conversation with every single person on JammCard, which I did successfully up until about a month ago. But now I'm just busy, and there's just a lot of new users. So that makes it hard.
Yeah, it does.
but I still definitely message 90%. And I always say, let me know if you have questions. I would love to hear your feedback. Please give me feedback. You know, and 99% of people just write me back, dude, it's perfect. I love it. And I'm like, okay. But every once in a while, I'll get someone that's like, yo, I really wish it did this. And I'm like, yes, tell me more. You know, like, what do you think? You know, because all I know is what I think. You know, I want to know what you think.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have different thoughts, and you could think of something I would have never thought about because I'm a drummer and a music director, but you're an engineer. So you're going to use JammCard differently than I'm going to. And a drummer on Instagram is going to use it different than a painter or an architect or something like that. You know, sure, there'll be similarities, but yeah. So I love asking people like, yo, and also another thing that Gary will tell you is, yo, get that negative feedback and take it, listen to it. You know, use it as constructive criticism. You know, like I would love to hear someone rip JammCard apart. I don't ever luckily, I mean, okay, I'm grateful that I don't hear people rip JammCard apart. But if someone were to rip JammCard apart, I would be like, tell me everything you hate. I want to hear it all, you know, like, cause then you can improve, you know? And that's one thing I do on myself. Like, for example, just about 6 weeks ago, I always look for my weaknesses. I'm like, okay, what are my weaknesses right now in JammCard, right? And I was like, you know what? In looking at everything, I was like, my tech is strong, the community is strong, the musicians are happy. What's weak on the business side? Okay, my financials are weak. I don't have this detailed 5-year pro forma, blah, 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 because I didn't go to college, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, I literally didn't go to college for anything, not even just music. You know, like.
You are a true entrepreneur then. True entrepreneur.
Yeah, true entrepreneur. I like building things, but. So I realized, I was like, man, okay, the weak thing that for JammCard right now is I don't have a 5-year detailed financial plan, right? So I spent the last 6 weeks building that. But guess what I had to do to build it? Call the smartest person I could find that was one of my friends that is good at building financial plans and be like, hey, can you help me? You know, like, I want to build this. This is what you do. I could sit here and try to make a detailed Excel sheet, but you use Excel all the time and are great at it. You know, like, so are you down to help or collaborate? It's a collaboration just as much as writing a song is a collaboration.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new form of creativity that I had never even thought about. Right. And he showed me, and we've successfully did it, and God bless him for helping me, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, he thought JammCard was really cool, and he's a friend of mine, and he's a very supportive friend and a very nice friend to give me his time, you know, and be like, yeah, I want to help you build this. You know, I'm like, thank you. And that's what it's about. And that's the other thing I would say. That's the most back to what would you do? Step one of starting a company. Find people that want to start it with you. You know, like I'm a sole founder with JammCard. And I won't say it's a regret because I've learned a lot, but I will say moving forward, I will be a co-founder in my next companies. And I see the benefit of having a co-founder now, and I wish I did, you know. And I have partners, you know, and now we have employees and all that stuff is awesome. But I wish I had that CTO that was as good at technology as I was at product, or that CMO or whatever it was, or even a chief financial officer,
Yeah.
And we will one day, and I'll hire those people. But when we move forward, if after JammCard I start another company, blah blah blah, I will definitely, my goal will be to start it with a co-founder.
You know what's funny? I normally have a lot of, not necessarily opinions, but I normally give back a lot of feedback in my interviews. We just kind of go back and forth. This is one of the first times where I've just kind of sat back and just listened and just learned a lot from you, because you have a lot of really good things to say, which is something that I just can't stress enough. And I don't mean to just be doubling up on what you're saying. I'm reinforcing it, because I honestly do feel like a lot of musicians need to hear from this. I mean, the reality is, yes, we're all creative people. We're all doing music, playing drums, singing, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to earn money, you gotta be some sort of entrepreneur, some sort of salesperson. And there is no better way to learn how to do that than to listen to the people that actually do it, like yourself, who actually started a company from scratch, from zero, and then has built it to become what is now, I think even like Forbes magazine recognized your app as like one of the essential tools for musicians today. Like, you can't do that just by guessing. Like, you gotta know what you're doing, ask the right people, really be grinding in and going all in. Like, it's amazing. And you've done a really good job of summing it all up in like 10 minutes. Like, it's insane, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And that's the other thing I would say to all the musicians listening, even though we're doing startup entrepreneur talk right here, you are an entrepreneur, right?
100%.
Musicians are entrepreneurs. And I think that's why a lot of musicians fail or don't get where they want to be, because they don't embrace the business side, and it's like, that's the piece of advice I would give any musician, is learn the business side as much as possible, and just know that first of all, if you're an artist or you want to be an artist, you're a singer, you're whatever, you are not only an entrepreneur, you're the CEO of your company, right? You get a manager. A manager is an employee. A manager is essentially your COO, your chief operating officer, right? You are still the boss. You signed a major label deal. It's a lot of people's goals. If they don't know the industry inside out, your goal is, I want a major label deal. The major label is literally a bank loan that's investing in you. They're your investors, right? You're still the boss, right? They'll help build the team and distribute and yada, yada, and help marketing plan. You're the boss. You can tell them yes, no. And you need to lead. Because if you don't lead, those people will lead you, and that's how people get upset, right? That's how artists are unhappy. That's how artists are trying to get out of their deals. So take lead. And even if you're a drummer or a keyboardist or an engineer or a producer, you are a freelancer, right? You're the same as a plumber, right?
It's true.
No disrespect. Like me as a drummer, I am a plumber, right? It's the same thing. You are providing a service to someone to hire you, right? So the more entrepreneurial you are, the more you're on top of invoicing and collecting your money and all that stuff, the farther you'll go faster.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and you'll be on top of the game. I mean, the people that always get the gigs, the people that are ahead in terms of music or in any industry, are the guys that know what they're doing. They're constantly learning and trying to be on top of that entrepreneurial game. Like, you hear it all the time, not even just from me or Elmo, or you hear from everyone. Anyone who's ever been on top of the game will tell you that this stuff is important, no matter what you do.
For sure. The most important, honestly.
Probably the most important part, man.
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, not to sidetrack a little bit, can I just ask, how did you get that dinner with Gary Vee? And again, to remind some of my fans, I know I've talked about Gary Vee before, but just to remind, in case if you're joining this brand new, Gary Vee is this entrepreneur guy on Facebook and on social media who I guarantee that you've seen before. He just rants a lot of just, getting out there and doing, your stuff. And I love Gary Vee. If you haven't checked him out, highly recommend that you do, because he will inspire you to get off your ass and do something within a day. Guarantee you that. But so anyways, this guy's a huge entrepreneur. Everyone knows who he is, and you got a chance to have dinner with him. How did that happen? I'm just curious.
So one of my investors, threw a conference and hired Gary to speak at the conference. And after Gary spoke, he actually left, and I think he even left and spoke at another conference that day. Like finished his speech, and then either that or he left and went and did some sort of business, And then he came back and had dinner with us. Yeah. So it was via one of my investors who hired him to speak at his conference. And
that's insane.
And I got to have the inner in because I was one of his newest investments, you know. And that's the cool thing about getting investors, which I've never had investors before. By the way, when I started JammCard, like I said, I knew nothing about it. I had never raised a dime for anything before, you know.
Yeah.
So I had to figure that out. So, but that's the cool thing about having investors, especially when you get good investors, is you get their networks. You know, especially if they really like you and you keep proving yourself to them, you know, because once again, anyone can make it, but can you stay there? Same thing with an investment. Anyone can get the investment, but can you stay top of mind to your investor? You know,
yeah.
So they keep providing you value and you keep in contact with them and they keep thinking about, you know, when they're hanging with this baller person, are they going to bring you up or are they going to bring one of their other founders that they invested in when they have 20 other investments?
Yeah.
You know, same thing as a label, by the way, same exact thing. Top of mind, right? Gotta stay top of mind. A label has anywhere from 10 to 100 or more artists, right? So when your president of your label is having a big meeting with the president of iHeart, he only has 30 minutes to talk to him. He's only going to bring up 2 or 3 artists. Are you one of the 2 or 3? Or you could still be signed to that label. You know, you could be one, or you can be one of the other 40. That gets left out of that conversation, doesn't get that top prime spot on iHeart. You know, this is an example, obviously, but it's a real life example. So,
right. How did you manage to get on top of your investors list? Because I think that's I think you might have already answered that, but I'm curious, like mentally, were you just checking off things off your list, like hustling left and right? Is that how you basically got in good favor with your investor?
Well, this is actually another thing that's a high five to social media is a good way, depending on your investor. Some investors are on social media, some are not, you know. But for the ones that are, a lot of my investors just watch my story every day. I see it. I'm like, oh man, my investors are watching. Holy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but what I'm saying is, put yourself out there, right? And this is actually an amazing thing, not to go off subject, but when I was going to do season 2 of How I Got the Gig, we partnered with the Grammys on it. And I was like, holy shit, I never interviewed someone before. Now I'm like interviewing and we partnered with the Grammys. This is crazy. I need to actually like learn how to interview people. So I started studying like Barbara Walters.
Nice.
And that was one thing that she said, if you're doing something, scream it out loud. Tell everyone everything you're doing, right? So I was like, you know what? That's a beautiful thing. Because a lot of times with social media, I'll be like, oh, I'm only going to post this one thing that's a highlight of this week, and then I only posted once this week, or I don't know, something like that. But I use that with story a lot. With story, I'm very real in my story. I'm goofy. I show that I'm like, oh, I spent all day emailing, you know, or whatever. But what I'm saying is, if your investors are watching you or your friends or whoever's watching you, they're going to take note of what you're doing. So if you show them, you know, it's easy to see when someone's being productive, you know, and someone's killing it and someone's like focused, right? So if an investor invests in you or a label signs you, and then, which is the exact same thing, and you show them, I'm on top of it. I'm writing new songs constantly. I'm out gigging constantly. I'm practicing constantly. I'm networking constantly. They'll see that. They'll be stoked, and then they'll think of you more. Right? And then you hit them up with follow-ups. Yo, I got this accomplishment, this accomplishment, this accomplishment. Send them that once a month, once every 2 weeks, whenever, you know?
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Elmo, JammCard, this, that. And then that goes far.
Yes, it does.
So, and I think that's kind of what's happening with JammCard is because, you know, and that's what I love about JammCard is like it once again, family. Like JammCard to me feels like a family, which is, I'm so happy because that was a goal of mine. You know, I didn't want it to feel like LinkedIn feels like an office building. Like when I sign into LinkedIn, which is rare, I feel like I'm stepping into a cubicle and I'm like, I hate this, right? Like I wanted people to sign into JammCard and feel like they're like stepping into like a reunion with their friends. You know,
and it feels good. Like, the interface is well designed, man. Like honestly.
Thank you. Thanks, man. So that's one thing. I think that's why JammCard, we don't market at all. You know, I mean, we do indirect marketing, you know, like we do How I Got the Gig and Gear Goggles and Drummers in the Drum Room and like all of our shows, but none of our shows, not a single one do we say, download the app or the JammCard app ever. right? You won't hear us say it. So
Yeah.
all you'll see is like you'll research, be like, oh, maybe what is JammCard? Oh, what we're showing is we're just showing our members stories. We're just showing them, we're just helping our members tell their story, whatever it is, through different mediums. So in JammCard, feeling like a family, I think is why everyone is why it's spreading via word of mouth, because I think people enjoy it organically and are like proud to be a part of it, and then therefore they talk about it. And then what I'm hoping is, I don't want you to tell 100 people or 1,000 people. I want you to tell the 5 people that you think should be on it of your friends. You know, like that's my vibe, and I'm far more quality over quantity.
As you should be, man. And so if I can ask just real quick, as we're probably getting close to wrapping it up, I'm curious, like, what is your long-term goal for JammCard, if you even have one? Because you've achieved so many great milestones with it already. I'm curious, like, where you want to see it go.
Yeah, I mean our goal is to increase the quality of life for music professionals, right? So, and music professionals is a wide range of people. You know, it's not just the musicians, it's the producers, it's the engineers, it's the songwriters, it's the managers, it's the tour managers, like I was saying, it's all those people. But, you know, I think for the JammCard app, our goal is for the app, the technology itself, to be, you know, the backbone for the music industry. But my real goal is for it to provide endless opportunity to millions of people and bring people real money and make people happy and bring people the right gig, not just a gig, but the right gig, like we were talking earlier. If you want a hip hop gig, I want to bring you a hip hop gig. I don't want to bring you a country gig. You know, if you want a country gig, I want to bring you that country gig. So, and I hope that, you know, it continues to connect like-minded people, even if they're co-writers. They want to create their band. It's not just for hiring. You know, there's a lot of use cases with it. So I mean, my goal is just to create a very valuable platform for our community.
Fantastic, man. Honestly, like I said, I've learned so much from just listening to you speak, because it's really fascinating and inspiring to me to hear you, you know, basically achieve all your goals through your life. And essentially it comes down to what's important to you, even if it's just a very basic thing, be it family, be it, you know, I don't know, whatever it is for anyone out there. Like, I think my greatest takeaway from this whole conversation, even though there's so many great phrases you gave me, it's what I take away is that you basically, in a nutshell, know what you want and you go after that, and you make sure that you always meet that need, that no matter what you do, you don't sacrifice, you know, money, you don't sacrifice gigs, you don't sacrifice anything for what matters to you. And that's why you are where you're at. That's why you have JammCard. You started something brand new. You're starting a movement. And even if it was intentional or not, it's because you're pursuing what makes you. It's what you want to do. And I commend you for that. And I feel so honored to even have gotten a chance to speak with you today. Oh,
thank you, man. I appreciate that. Well, just to touch on one thing, I definitely did not accomplish all my goals.
Oh, man.
I have accomplished some of my goals. I've had a ton of failures, man. Like, essentially, so when you talk about things that really matter to you, what I would have wanted to work the most, or would it be my bands? Like, you know, I've done well being hired or whatever, like playing drums for people. But my main goal that was a failure was to have my bands make it. And none of my bands, I've had bands do well, but I haven't had any bands like make it, you know, and that's still a goal that I have. And like, I will eventually continue, striving for that, you know, post JammCard, or who knows what the future holds, but like, but just to say, I still have goals. I have a lot of misses. I've missed a lot. I've had a lot of failures, but I definitely have accomplished some things, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be here in this position to where I feel like we can create cool stuff, and it's all about just creating. That's what I'm about.
Absolutely. And to kind of, you know, further what you said a little bit, I would even encourage other people, from what I've learned for myself, is find a way to love those failures too. Learn from the failures, because the reality is, anyone who's ever been anybody, we all have tons of dreams, obviously. I don't think any single one of us only has one dream or one goal. We all have multiple ones. And, we accomplish them at different points in time. But the failures are really what help you learn what not to do what to do at the same time. And so, honestly, there's no saying that your band's not going to make it next year. Who knows? But like, you've learned so much, and that's why you're at where you're at. It's because you have not let those failures bring you down. In fact, you open your ears and you were listening to those failures and learning from them.
Right on. You got it. Thanks, Eddie.
Dude, you're awesome. I love talking to you, man. Honestly, like, I would wish you luck, but I don't think you need any luck.
No,
man.
I need it.
Make your own
wish
luck.
me the luck. I need it. Let's go.
You want me to win? Okay, fine. Elmo, I officially wish you luck with JammCard, with, your future band that's going to make it, because it's all you and it's just your band alone. And honestly, like, you're going to do great.
Thanks, Eddie. I wish you luck with your giant management company.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Elmo. As always, I learn from every guest that I have, and Elmo is definitely no exception. As some of you guys know, I am inspired by entrepreneurs who basically pull themselves up from the bootstraps, and they create big companies that basically cause changes in the world. And I think Elmo is leading a change in the musician world, a change that we very much well need right now, especially with technology being so prominent. And if there's any takeaway from this episode that I want from you guys, it's to really learn from Elmo, his entrepreneurial spirit, on how he had never been trained on designing and building apps, but he found a way to do it. It doesn't matter if you want to build an app, build a business, or even just be a drummer. If you don't know how to do something, if you don't know how to figure out this industry that we're in, just dive in and figure it out. And I guarantee you that you'll find success. So if you like this episode, definitely press that subscribe button, because I've got lots of great content coming your way.